Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to Kottabos Space Program, where today we are having a look at yet another wonderful mod, this time in the form of OctoSat, which is being made by forum user Nukos, and what this glorious little piece of work looks to add into the game is a fun modular satellite system, which I have been having a whole lot of fun with so far. I'm a big fan of building satellites in this game, and anything modular is good in my opinion. And interestingly, I gotta point this out because I find it amusing. This was not the intended mod that the mod maker originally wanted to make. They started making a launch vehicle, which is being proposed by the Swiss Space Systems, but got sidetracked creating satellites, which would be intended to be the payload for this launch vehicle from the Swiss Space Systems, and it just sort of grew out of control into its own modular satellite system, and thus we are here now. So let's jump right on into the VAB and have a gander at all of the parts that make this possible. Now, of course, first and foremost, any good satellite needs a probe core, and we get 3 lovely little probe cores here, which we're gonna have to zoom in once we do grab the OctoSat Compact Guidance Unit, which is the most basic of all of the well, I guess probe cores for this. It does have, of course, command, uses electric charge, rather, of 1.2 per minute. I always want to say electricity, but no, electric charge, 1.2 per minute. It does have its own built-in data transmitter, which, amusingly, if we click on this and extend, there we go, just boom, a little, little antenna just pops out there. That amuses me. And then it does have texture switching on it, which is quite cool, so we can switch it between all of these different textures so that you can give your satellite just the right color that you would like for whatever aesthetic you're going for. Now, it does also have its own reaction wheel, though not very powerful, and of course SAS. Now, we then can move up to the OctoSat Core Guidance Module, which is twice the size, and you'll notice both of these have a crap load of attachment points, which will become important momentarily. And this one, just like the small little guidance unit, does have its own built-in antenna, though this one has 4. The animations are a little wonky at the moment. Not everything has an animation for it, it just sort of pops into existence, but it works for the time being, considering this is only version 0.5 of this mod, so it's still in the early stages. But yes, I do like the 4 little antennae just popping out there. And this one, very similar to the smaller compact guidance unit, but it does have a higher data transmission rate. It has a slightly more powerful reaction wheel, and this one also has a built-in battery. Now, it's only 10 electric charge, so that won't last it too long, but still, it does have a little bit of a built-in battery, which is quite nice. Now, if we chuck this baby off and look at the last of the probe cores, now this is the OctoSat Side Guidance Module, and remember all of those attachment points on the side of this thing? Well, that's where this goes, and this is where you start to get into the modular nature of this mod. The whole point of it is you build around a central core and then pop these modules around the edge so that you can have 8 different modules on your satellite, each doing potentially different things, which is quite cool. And I do quite enjoy the texturing and modeling on this, even though the modeling is fairly simple. I mean, we're just making a big octagon out of wedges, but still, it all looks good. I do like the little lip that they have right here, and the texturing, very nice. Now, as for the stats for this probe core, again, fairly similar to the others. Once more, this one has an even higher transmission rate, a slightly more powerful reaction wheel, and a slightly larger electric charge in the battery. Now, amusingly, also has its antenna, as I said, and this one extends to the side. Oh, I don't know why, but that one makes me happy. It just sort of pops. It's just boom. There we go. We got a little satellite. And yeah, that is the third of the probe cores. So let's drop that out of existence and head down to fuel tanks, which we will find a selection of fuel tanks. Now remember, we did have this probe core that could go on the side, and that's because you don't necessarily have to start with the center. Sure, we could start with one of these center column guidance units, but if you want it on the side and would rather have a fuel tank as the central column, you can do that. And this fuel tank, similarly to the probe cores, can have its texture changed to whatever color you so desire, that, well, at least whatever color's preloaded into this, and also has the lovely ability of being able to change the type of tank that it is. So we can go from liquid fuel and oxidizer to just liquid fuel, just oxidizer, xenon gas, or of course monopropellant. Now all of these it doesn't hold in large quantities, because again, this stuff is small. In fact, let's quickly just sort of pop on the Mark 1 command pod so you can see just how small this stuff is. So definitely not going to be holding a whole lot of fuel inside of this thing, but it's enough to do what you need to do with it. Now, of course, we have it in several varieties here. Let's get back to the fuel tanks page. We have this particular one, which I just popped on, which is, again, sort of the double stack version. We then have two separate single stack versions, and the difference between these is where the texturing is. So on this one, the texturing that we can change is on the top, whereas this one, the texturing that you can change is on the bottom. And that's so that you can, say for instance, we have the texturing on the top of this probe core. We can then take this to sort of finish off that central column so that we have texturing on the bottom. And you can also do it vice versa. So it's quite handy. It's for more aesthetic reasons, but of course, this can change between the different fuel types and different textures, just like the larger one. And then finally, we have the side module, which is a much larger fuel tank, though still, again, not hugely large, and you can change the tank to whatever you desire there, and of course, the texturing, which is, of course, a lot more noticeable on this much larger piece of equipment here. But yeah, that is the 4 fuel tanks, just different sizes, different shapes, and different modules. Now next we have engines. And engines come in 4 varieties again, the first being the Bob monopropellant engine, which is just sort of a half-size stack engine, and we can pop it on the bottom there. And if we, oh god, yeah, there we go, that's as close as we can get, toggle the animation, boom, here comes the engine, and we have a lovely little monopropellant engine, which, of course, being monopropellant doesn't do much for you. It only has a thrust of 3.143 kilonewtons in atmosphere and 8 in vacuum, but of course does sip fuel at 0.7 per second monopropellant and can be changed on the texturing again, gimbaling, and does also have a small monopropellant tank inside of it holding 5. Now, the next engine that we have is another sort of half-stack, and this is the Dusk electric propulsion system. Now, this, of course, uses xenon gas. Let's sort of zoom in again and see its little animation. Sort of opens up there, and boom, we got a little electric engine that comes out. And this baby, even less thrust of only 0.048 kilonewtons atmosphere, 2 kilonewtons in thrust, and uses a fair amount of electric charge at 8.74 per second. But xenon gas at only 0.486 per second, so a pretty good little engine. No gimbaling, of course, being, you know, the xenon gas one. Now, the next engine we have is a much larger one. It is, of course, a 2-stack one, so we're going to put this on the side here. And what this is the Magnus liquid fuel engine, and if we toggle its animation, you can see it sort of opens up there and then lowers down a tiny little electric engine, or not electric, but liquid propulsion. Oh my god, liquid fuel engine. Why could I not get that word right? Alright, but yes, there we go. Liquid fuel and oxidizer has a fair amount more power at 1.571 kilonewtons in atmosphere, 11 in vacuum. It does create its own electrical charge. It's got the alternator in there, which is always useful. And actually is pretty efficient on the fuel at only using 0.288 liquid fuel per second and 0.353 oxidizer, and of course gimbaling, etc. Now, the last engine that we have is actually my personal favorite on here, the Nervet atomic rocket engine. So it's just a tiny little rocket engine. Oh, come on, attach is the problem with the modular nature of these things. Sometimes it doesn't want to attach to certain points. Oh, come on, buddy. Oh, that's gonna... gonna get me. Okay, okay, you know what? We're just gonna pop it down on the bottom. That'll work. And this one, if we open up its animation, it sort of just folds out, but also folds out the top, which is what I wanted to show you to, you know, show us this lovely little engine cone down here. Let's try and put it on the side again. Oh, God, it's fair enough. And then, yes, it opens up at the top as well, so this is really what you'd want to have as your full center column. And, yes, this has, once again, alternators to produce a little bit of electric power, has 0.915 kilonewtons of thrust in atmosphere, 7 in vacuum, and sips liquid fuel at 0.22 per second. And, yeah, beautiful little engine. Now, in the next tab in Command and Control, we've got a couple of things. Now, the first is the OctoSat Advanced Reaction Wheel, which is another module to put on the side, and it has a reaction wheel with torque of 3.3. And again, can be changed texturing. Every part on here you can change texturing, so just keep that in mind for everything else. We also have 2 different bitsy teeny reaction wheels, and they're similar to the fuel tanks we saw earlier. They're both half size, and one of them has the texturing on the top, the other has the texturing on the bottom, and both of these individually has a reaction wheel torque of 2. And so once more, you could, if you say have this probe core on there, we could install this in the center column on the bottom, so we have the texturing there, and you know, just get rid of that baby, and yeah, you'll have a lovely torque of 2. Now, we do just have a large center column, which you can replace your probe core with, that has a reaction wheel torque of 4. It is the most powerful of the reaction wheels, and subsequently uses the most electric charge of all of them. And lastly, we do have modular, lovely little RCS bits here. So you pop those onto the side, and you have RCS thrusters on the top and bottom, and also on the side, and you can put those all around to give yourself whatever RCS control you so desire. So very handy, very cool indeed. Let's just pop that off and go down into structural, where we'll find a couple of structural center column pieces. Again, we've got these sort of double stack, and then 2 half stacks, which have the texturing on the bottom and on the top. These are purely structural. They have no other use besides that, so they don't have fuel or anything of that variety. So in my opinion, kind of useless. I don't like having parts on my ships that don't have a use, so I rather use a fuel tank for a central column rather than just a structural piece of thing. And we then do have a structural side module as well, which I find even more useless because, well, quite frankly, I'm wanting modules on my modular satellite. So let's check that baby away. But we do have a Mark 1 OctoSat adapter so that you can pop one of these on and then build a rocket. Now, of course, you'd probably want this on the bottom here and then build your rocket from here. Very cool. And then we also have a separator and a decoupler of the same OctoSat variety. Very handy, very useful to allow you to launch these things into space. And it should be noted, actually, if you take a look at the Sepratron here, we do have, once you have all of the modules attached to this thing, it is roughly the size of one of the 1.25 meter tanks. So if we pop that down here, there we go. See? So once you have the separator on, you just build off your small rocket and you're good to go. Now that's all for structural. Nothing in aerodynamics, because of course these are satellites. They don't really need aerodynamics. So then in utility, we have 4 lovely modules here. The first being a battery, which, again, texturing can be changed. Lovely. And it's a big battery of 330 electrical charge. The next is a OctoSat fuel cell, which will take liquid fuel and oxidizer and turn it into electricity, and also does have a battery of about 75, so very useful for energy generation if you have an excess of fuel. We then have a radioisotope thermoelectric generator, so basically just, you know, one of the RTGs, and this will produce your electricity at 30 per minute. Very good, always active. Yeah, I love the little nuclear silo symbol on there. It's very, very cool. And then the final one is the OctoSat solar panel, which we can extend, and boom, it's right in our face. There we go, a beautiful solar panel that you can put around this thing to power it. My preferred method, of course, because, well, I like solar panels. And then finally we have science, and we have 3 modules in here, the first being a mystery goo container, which serves the exact same purpose as this mystery goo container, but of course is built into the whole modular system here. We then have a OctoSat Science Junior, once again serves the same purpose as this Science Junior, but just in a smaller modular form factor. And the last one is my personal favorite, because even though they are kind of useless scientifically, I just love the information from them. This is the Science Bundle, which bundles together the gravity sensor, the temperature sensor, the seismic sensor, and the pressure sensor all into one. So instead of having all these little things strapped onto the side, you just have one module there, and it's very cool and very useful. But yes, that is all of the various pieces that make up this modular satellite system, so let's go and have a gander at the engines, just to see how they do look out in the world, and then we'll take a look at an OctoSat that I built and put up into space earlier today. So if we go to the launch pad here, I've set up, oh my god, this thing is so tiny. I've set up a lovely little modular satellite, and I actually didn't point this out in the VAB, and I should have. Now, this is meant to be modular, and you aren't restricted to a single tier. This is 2 double-stack central columns, so that at the bottom I have the full modules going around of fuel and battery power, and then the top I have these various engines attached. So you can make your modular satellite as thin or as tall as you want. So you could stack a dozen of these central columns on top of one another and put modules all around the darn thing and just have a freaking tower of OctoSats here, if you so desire. And it's quite a nice little thing that you can do there. But let's take a look at these engines. So first, the Magnus liquid fuel engine. Take a look at that beautiful animation again. Oh yeah, glorious. Glorious. And there we go, a tiny, oh so tiny liquid fuel oxidizer engine, which can't even produce enough thrust to nudge this thing to the side here on the launch pad. Works a lot better in space, of course, because, well, it's a satellite. It's meant to be a satellite. So let's shut down that engine, go to the atomic engine. See that baby open up, and then wait for the oh god, the nozzle's in the inside. Well, I messed that up. We'll wait to fire that one till last, because it's going to explode the whole satellite. Yeah, the nozzle's facing that way. I apologize for that, folks. I should have double-checked that. The Bob monopropellant engine, that one. Lovely folding open. There we go, and let's spray that monopropellant out. Ah, look at it, just sort of... oh, so little thrust. So little thrust indeed. There we go, shut that back. And then go to the Dusk electric engine. There we go. I love how this one sort of spins open, and then you get this beautiful little electric engine. Let's actually open this up to make sure I don't use all of our electric charge on this bloody thing. But yeah, we're throttled up. That's the engine. It's an electric engine after all. There's not exactly a whole lot of effect. If we zoom in, you can sort of see that this central ring does start to glow blue. There we go. You should be able to see that. And if I throttle back down, it goes back to black. Not exactly the most impressive thing in the world, but again, it's an electric engine. What are you expecting? So let's activate the atomic engine again and explode the whole thing. Now, it's going to have a similar particle effect to the liquid engine. We all know that. They're not that different in particle effects. But yeah, just a tiny little thing that, of course, exploded the liquid fuel engine. Awesome. It wanted it to know who was boss. And there we go. We have that particle effect sort of going through the core. Ah, science. There we go. Lovely. So let's just go to the Space Center, rather, and go to the tracking station where we'll have a gander at a satellite that I have up in space. Now, again, this OctoSat is one that's more than just one layer. Let's zoom in. As you can see, it's 2 layers of modular OctoSats. And we have our lovely antenna there. We have the separator so that we can, drop off of this section. So there we go. We have dropped off our main rocket section, so now we are just our lovely, lovely little satellite, which, once the engine does come out, exploded that because we were too damn close. Wow, we're exploding everything on accident today. And yeah, power through until this tiny little engine can go and have its fun. But yeah, this is the OctoSat modular satellite system. It's a lot of fun. I've really been loving this thing because you can build as small with just one unit of modules, or as large with many, many modules stacked on top of one another as you desire to create your perfect satellite with science, communication, engines, etc. And the best part is, this mod's only about halfway done. There are a lot of parts that the mod maker is still wanting to add in, and I can't wait to see what happens with it. If I'm remembering correctly, they're wanting to add a survey scanner module, a landing module, so you could use these as probes on other worlds, additional antennas for after KSP 1.1, a new Science Junior design service bays, all sorts of things are all hopefuls to have in the future, and, well, I can't wait to see it. But yes, that is going to be it for today, folks. If you would like to try out this mod for yourself, you can take a look at the link in the description as always, and I definitely hope you do give it a try. These things are just beautiful. And of course, I do hope that you have enjoyed this episode today, and that you do come back for the next. But until then, thank you for watching, my friends, and as always, have a good one. Now, for some reason, I've decided to spin this satellite out of control. I don't know why, but it felt like the thing to do. Later, folks.